Hello, everybody. My name is Cory Taylor, and I am presenting my capstone from Savvy Coders November 2023 Full Stack Web Development course. I decided to make a website about meal prepping. So, like I said, I'm Cory Taylor, not to be confused with the lead vocalist of the band Slipknot. I was born and raised in St. Louis. I got my Bachelor's of Fine Arts degree in Visual Communication from Truman State University several years ago. Right now, I am working as a graphic designer for a landscaping company, but lately I felt like I had hit the glass ceiling and I didn't see myself selling landscapes for the rest of my life. Before I started this full stack boot camp through Savvy Coders, I was teaching myself about web design through Free Code Camp. But oftentimes, whenever I would hit walls, it did leave me without much recourse. And that was when my in-laws had pushed me to take full stack web development as a career path, and I cannot give them enough thanks. With this bootcamp, I sought to improve what I already know about web design and completely shift to a web development career on either the front end or the back end. So for my capstone, I decided to dub my capstone iMealPrep. And I think it is a perfect solution for anybody who is trying to make the idea of prepping meals for the week a lot easier, especially if you are trying to meet certain fitness goals. This idea kind of came easy to me because my wife and I currently do meal preps for each week, specifically dinners. Since she works evenings and I'm working days, it just made the most sense for us to each make a dinner that we can enjoy throughout the week. One thing about this project, I originally went in with the idea of wanting to allow the user to take pictures of the ingredients in their fridge or pantry, but had to scrap that idea due to time constraints, and it would have been too resource heavy. So to make up for that, the user can instead submit ingredients of their choice through a recipe form, and then the website will print whatever recipes it suggests. I was inspired to make this capstone by looking at other apps such as Supercook and even MyFitnessPal and Eat This Much. I wanted to make it user-friendly with simple but effective styling. And of course, a massive amount of possible recipes. But even that, while it is a strength, it became a weakness because the amount of recipes, it can be endless, especially when you factor in the massive amount of ingredients that I put into my code. And also, some of those ingredients that I added don't even yield a recipe. But this website did give me an opportunity to connect to a third-party API to create recipe suggestions based on whatever ingredients you select. And in future, I can even implement other ideas through the same API. As for threats, competition would be the number one threat, like any other application. There also was a possibility for bugs in the code, and the massive amount of ingredients for the user to choose was also a threat, just because it would have yielded an endless amount of recipes, or sometimes not at all. So looking at my user flow chart, all of my pages branch off the home page. The recipes has its own form where you can pick the ingredients of your choice, submit that, and then the website will go to the API and print the recipes that it suggests. And as for the contact page, you can submit emails, and I will get to that later. So these are some of the wireframes that I had formulated. Each one has the nav bar at the top with the Hero Jumbotron header beneath it and the footer at the bottom. Homepage has a brief description of what this website is. The how to use page talks about how you can use meal prepping to meet fitness goals. Recipes is where you find that recipe form. And I am not kidding when I say that it is a monster of code. And of course, about is about me, and then contact is where you can submit the emails. Throughout the boot camp, we learned about the agile methodologies. And in the latter half of the cohort, I was nominated as the agile product owner. This helped me ensure that me and the rest of our teammates stayed up to date on the tasks that were assigned of us for each sprint. With me leading daily stand-ups, it helped teach me to take the initiative. It helped me know where each of us were throughout our sprints, and it allowed us to toss ideas amongst ourselves to find important solutions or even listen to important feedback from the others. And as a result of completing this boot camp, we all had received our IC Agile certification. My website was built using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and all of those would mesh together to create a single page application. Like I had stated before, the recipe form and my email form are handled using APIs. Recipe form is handled using a third-party API called Spoonacular. You select your ingredient, you click Find Recipe, and the results are displayed beneath that form. As I have it coded, as I have in the code, it is right now mapping the recipe's image and the recipe's title onto the page. And the email form, I originally was handling that with FormSpree, but then one of the tasks for this assignment was to create our own API. I did not know where else to make my own API for this website, so having my own API handle the email forms seemed to make the most sense. And all the emails would then be submitted and displayed on MongoDB. And speaking of that MongoDB, we deployed our website there, as well as Netlify and Render. For me, the biggest blocker with this whole capstone was trying to figure out the best way to code that recipe form so that it would not only gather the recipes, but also properly post the results to that page. This was kind of a concern when everything was working on the local side, but when it was posted to Netlify, it wasn't working. But with the help of my teachers and my TA, I then learned that I did not have everything mapped from my env file. But after making sure that issue was fixed, everything finally did work on Netlify. And now we move to the proudest moment. My proudest moment with this project was deploying my website to render.com on the first go. I had my doubts because I tried deploying to Netlify the first time, and it did not work on the first try. After getting help from the teachers, we finally got everything to deploy to Netlify. And then as I was deploying to Render, I was keeping a close eye on those deploy logs. And when I saw build is live, I did a little victory dance. As for future plans with this website, along with my job search for a web developer role on the front end or the back end, I will continue working on this website. I do want to see how I can allow the viewer to click the recipe and go straight to the source so they can follow the steps and make sure they have the correct measurements of those ingredients to make that recipe of choice. And I may even dabble with mapping some other information, because Spoonacular does allow you to map other items such as the nutrition labels. And this would especially be important if you are trying to meal prep to hit certain fitness goals, because you want to make sure you're not going over your calories or going overboard on fat or going too low on protein. I should know because I have type 1 diabetes, so I always have to make sure I know exactly the amount of carbs I'm eating so that my blood sugars do not spike or drop. And with that, we will now move over to Netlify. And this is my site posted on Netlify, nav bar at the very top, along with the Jumbotron header. And we have a little bit about iMealPrep over here. And of course, we have the footer at the bottom linked to my GitHub and my LinkedIn and my contact info. So how to use, since I stated that meal prepping is especially beneficial for folks who are trying to meet fitness goals, I decided to add that in there. And here you have a little header on how you can calculate the basal metabolic rate in imperial or metric measurements. There's also a header on how you can calculate your maintenance calories based on how active you are, calculating the calories to figure out how many to deduct to be in a deficit while you're cutting, or how many to be in a surplus when you're bulking. And then we have the calorie exchange rates for carbohydrates, protein, and fat, as well as the formulae for determining how much protein, how much fat, and how many carbs to eat to match your calorie needs. And we have a little closing statement talking about how, of course, individual results will vary because everyone is different, and that you just need to test these for a few weeks. And now we got the monster, the recipe finder. I will pull up some code here. And I am not joking when I say that the recipes page is a monster. So we have the form that starts on line 10. And as we scroll all the way down, you will also see that these ingredients are separated into different categories. These diets up here are the only diets that would work on Spoonacular API. But all these other ingredients are separated into categories. And as we keep scrolling down, we're in the 4,000s. 5. Oh, 2 5. The form ends on line 6,438. And beneath that, I have created a template literal with state mapped to the recipes page. And of course, mapping the individual recipe to return using an arrow syntax to return the recipe image as well as the recipe's title. And both of those were joined together. So let's test this whole thing out. Let's do gluten-free diet. And let's see, what else do we want to do? How about chocolate chips? And as we can see, it maps the results down here. And it's even mapped to the console. So we have Valentine's Day pretzel treats, homemade chocolate truffles, Reese's peanut butter chocolate chip cookies. If these aren't making you hungry, I don't know what to tell you. So that was a brief look at the monster that is the recipes code. And we have a little about me section. I will expand on that. But also here in about, we have links to my GitHub and my LinkedIn. And then the contact page, we have the email form. This was originally using the FormSpree API, but since I did not know where else to use a custom-made API, I then was reminded that maybe the email form was the best way to use the custom-made API. So we click Submit. Everything is mapped here on the console, and then we move over to MongoDB, and we will see that it was mapped there as well. And with all of that, I want to thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to experience my capstone presentation and learn about meal prepping. If you have any questions, please reach out to me on my GitHub or my LinkedIn profile. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.